Okay, good morning all. In today's session, we will be covering Jenkins Basic, which we covered in earlier session. So it would be just a brief, just to uh, refresh the whatever we did earlier, and we will also start covering the aspects of integration of other tools with Jenkins, so that we can target the complete CI/CD part. So this series would cover integration of GitLab, uh, which we will be covering today. Then later on, we will also see how it integrates with other tools like Ansible, then Terraform or other build tools, so that we can cover the complete CI/CD pipeline, how it works, how different tools integrate to. Let's start. Okay, so let's go through the earlier slide which we covered. So in this session, we had covered what is CI/CD, how it differs from DevOps, what are the CI/CD tool sets, Jenkins installation, Jenkins configuration, uh, plugins, how to install plugins, what are the tools we would use Maven as a tool, correct? How to install a particular tool. Then we will create a sample job. Then we will integrate it GitHub, and then we will see how to run this job with code, which is there in the GitHub. And then at the end, we will see how the code coverage works and how we can publish the code coverage as well as test deploys. So starting with CI/CD, as we know all, like continuous integration is the practice of integrating changes from different developers into mainline as early as possible. So it's basically whenever multiple developers they are developing their piece of code, that cannot be a standalone code, that has to basically integrate into the main line. So CI is a this process of integrating everybody's changes, correct, and making sure that only the clean code or correct code is integrated. So this process involves continuous automated testing. The code should be compilable, it should be packageable, and all other basic uh, what we can say code sanity checks they are in place. Then continuous development and continuous delivery are somewhat similar, but overall is like whenever your code is integrated, so basically once that continuous integration finishes, then the continuous deployment starts. So basically, it makes your code deployable, correct? And in some of the cases, if code can also be released. So continuous deployment and delivery differs in a way. Let me show it graphically. So this is how it works. So continuous deployment is basically a process where you are deploying your code on your test beds, on your reproduction environment, or your in deployment or development environment. Right? So once it is deployed, you run the end-to-end test cases, you do the regression, you do the soak test or any other test which you want. Take the feedback, what is the status, how many test cases have passed, is all existing features working correctly. If you have already automated your current cases, are they working? What is the passing percentage? What is the performance factor? So all those things you calculate and give that feedback to the whole ecosystem again, maybe the developers or your project managers. So that is what the continuous deployment is. And continuous then these can be delivered to your production environment, or these can be deployed directly into your customer environment. Okay, then DevOps basically is the superset. It includes your continuous integration, continuous delivery along with the agile development, and also it also covers the factors of continuous deployment and continuous operation. Basically, how do you monitor your applications once it has been deployed, okay? And all other operational factors they are also taken care. So whole this process is called DevOps. So this is how the continuous delivery and deployment uh, differs. So most of the steps are same. It's just like continuous delivery. The deployment to production can be a manual process, or it can also be a some triggers. Then these are the different tools that we already know. Like different phases have a different tools. Uh, for food management, you have a Git. Your for food or designs, use some of the people they use Confluence. For your user stories, you can use project management. You can use Jira. Then for building, you have a different build tools, SBT, Maven, Gradle. So depending upon what kind of a project it is, uh, build tools can differ. Then for testing, they are for end-to-end testing, you have a Selenium Protector or many other different tools available, depending upon what kind of a project it is and what of tools have been um, finalized or configured. Then for the release, you have a different tools like Jenkins, CodeShift, uh, and then if you have a deployment, for deployment there can be multiple things, like you could be deploying your artifacts directly into some virtual machines, or you could have a Docker, or you may have some other cloud deployments, like AWS. You might be deploying on uh, like multiple services are there on the AWS. So depending, this all again depends upon what kind of artifacts you are generating, uh, how they are supposed to be deployed. So that defines what kind of tools you would need in this case. Then for operations, you have a Chef, Ansible, Kubernetes. So we already covered the Ansible. So these things helps you how your artifacts are basically deployed on your environments, deployment environments. Okay. Then you have a monitoring phase, which basically once your software or product has been deployed, how would you monitor that everything is going okay? If some node goes down or some module goes down, or if there is a surge in the CPU utilization, RAM utilization, how would you manage that? So there are different frameworks available in Azure, Splunk, Datadog. So you can configure different alarms, knock center, correct? So it can generate notifications via email, SMS, whatever way you want to configure. So somebody doesn't have to sit 24/7 in front of deployment to see alarms. So alarms can be configured. You can configure trap, and traps will generate different alarms. So this is how different CI/CD tools are used in DevOps pipeline. So basically, this heading uh, should be DevOps, not just a CI/CD, because we have covered the uh, operational and monitoring aspects as well as the planning part also. So we can say this is the complete uh, sample tool list for DevOps pipeline. Okay. So last time we started with this Jenkins installation on AWS. So we will do the same thing again. So last time we were stuck, we were not able to compile, even though we were able to install the Jenkins on AWS EC2 instance. Uh, but somehow during compilation we were getting error. So there was a like we had to switch to our local Jenkins server. But this time I resolved it. So let's do the that thing on a EC2 instance. So I will tell you what was the issue last time. And then, okay. So let's go through this whole PPT ones and then we will do the hands-on. So in this step, we will install the Jenkins. So Jenkins can be uh, in a multiple ways. You can deploy it using a Docker, which we will cover in maybe coming week, maybe next week. Okay. And it can also be deployed as a standalone bot, like you can just use Java minus star to run it. So it has embedded web container, or you can deploy it inside a web container like Tomcat. So that or on some of the Linux or even in Windows, you can run it as a service. For simplicity, we will be running this in a command line. Okay? But in most of the cases, like in big organizations, the Jenkins is generally run as a service. Okay? So that even some that machine which is running Jenkins restarts. So if after restart, the Jenkins as a services resume. So you don't have to do any action yourself. Okay? So if you want to run Tomcat, if you want to run a Jenkins in a Tomcat, this is the set like high level steps. You have to set up the Tomcat server, and then you have to copy the WAR file into the web apps folder of the Tomcat folder, and then it would be automatically start running. Okay, so minimum configuration required is 2 GB RAM with JDK at least 1.5, but we will be using the EC2 instance free tier which has a 1 GB of RAM. Okay. So it works there with basic configurations, and with our configurations it should be fine with the 1 GB RAM. Okay. So once you run that tool, once you run this command basically, this Java minus star, uh, you will get this screen where you have to enter your administrative password, which is a temporary password. Okay. So you can either check the logs or this password is stored. This path would be shown by Jenkins itself. You can copy this path password. So this is a one-time password just for unlocking the Jenkins. Okay. Then next part is to set up the plugins, whatever plugins you require. So there are two ways. Jenkins gives you a customized list or like most used plugins list. So you can go with that, or you can use your own set of plugins if you already know it. Okay. So last time we used this suggested plugins, but this time we will go with the second option. So we will also see how we can um, choose our own set of plugins when we know what is required. Second option is good when you know what needs to be done. Okay? Because in most of the production environment, uh, you only need to install only the plugins which are needed. Because if you just go with random set of plugins, some of the plugins they are not secure, and they also increase the attack surface area if you install plugins which are not used. And these plugins also take up some of the space. So it's better to install the plugins which you know you would be using it, or on need basis you can just keep on installing the plugins which you need it. Once you choose that option, and if you've chosen some plugins, if they are installed, you will get this page where you can set up your accounts. So Jenkins itself has a user management module where you can define your users who can access and what they can access. So first you need to create an admin user. Okay. So you enter your username, password, and email. Once the Jenkins is ready, you will be shown screen like this. Okay. So if you have already installed plugins during the first step, then you can skip it. But otherwise, you can do the whole plugin management, including the installation, upgrades, and deletion using the plugin installation. Okay, so this is as a part of Manage Jenkins. So we will cover this section a little later. Okay. Then okay, fine. So apart from plugins, there is also a concept of tools. So you can configure global tools in Jenkins. So these tools, once configured, is available to each and every jobs which you create. Okay. So general tools like JDK, Maven, Git, or any other tool similar tools can be configured here. Okay. So this helps you your whole DevOps pipeline to have a common set of tools and standard baselines. Here you can configure which needs a JDK version. For example, one needs JDK version 1.8 and another needs a JDK version 9, for example. So you can also configure multiple instances, and while creating a job, you can choose which version of JDK, for example, to use. So that functionality is also there. So in a single Jenkins machine, you can have multiple instances of these tools, and in job you can choose whatever version you want to use. Okay. So then you can create multiple jobs, like you can create jobs. So earlier we used to call it jobs, now they call it projects, or some of the people they also call it in a pipeline also. So there are multiple types of jobs which you can create. So most commonly is a freestyle project, and then there is a pipeline. So pipeline is basically using your scripts you can create like complex workflows. Okay. So but here you need to know the language, scripting language, which is like Groovy in this case. But maintaining these pipelines becomes very difficult when uh, like somebody leaves the organization, because these becomes very complex with complex workflows. So you have to understand the script as well as how the script works, and what kind of some of the times people do the workaround. So you have to also understand the workarounds. But most common boxes, or you have a drop box kind of a functionality. So you just need to enter the values, and all other parameters or some basic configurations, they are all taken care by the plugins itself. So this helps in this is more kind of a GUI based job configuration, which is easy to understand, easy to configure, and most of the complex things like if, else, and those kind of while kind of things which are more related to coding or scripting, they are hidden inside the plugin itself. Okay. So there are multiple other pipelines also, but uh, depending upon project or need, you might need you might see them in action. But mostly freestyle or pipeline is used. But in our case, we will be using a freestyle project. Okay. So freestyle project also has a functionality where you can generate the pipeline code. Okay, once you have a freestyle project, so you can also generate the script. So that functionality is also provided by Jenkins. But my experience is like freestyle projects are easy to maintain, easy to understand. If somebody leaves the organization and somebody has to take up that activity, it is easy to understand for new person also. So you don't have to basically play with the like if else while kind of things. So all those things are hidden inside. It just gives you a basic interface where you need to provide the values and everything is you can do it. Okay. Then there are management part. Then where you can provide what is your SCM tool. Okay. You can provide the URL and other things. Then you can define how your job or how your build is basically triggered. So there are multiple trigger points available. Okay, so these can be the periodic, so kind of a cron job kind of a thing, or it can also be a trigger from outside, or it can be a trigger from your other jobs. Like if one job is done and you want another job to be triggered after once that job is finished. So that kind of a functionality is also there. You can also keep on polling your source code management tool. So if there is any change in SCM, so those change can also be picked up. Okay. So we will cover some of these build triggers in today's session. Then you have a build environment. So in build environment, you can set like environment variables which are needed for your build build subsections basically. Okay. Then obviously you have a build tool, and then there you can basically build your artifacts, and then you have a post build, which basically like once your build is done, how you want to proceed further. So like do you want to publish reports, you want to send notifications to third party, or you want to send notifications to your SCM tool. So those multiple things can be done. So this job also gives you a functionality where you can basically call your shell script or bash shell scripts, because many of the functionalities might not be available through plugins. So in that case, we can use shell or bash based upon which platform this Jenkins is running. Okay. So we can create complex workflows using these jobs. Okay. So one of the property of the jobs is like jobs can be done in sequential manner. Like some of the times it might be possible, but like your single job might not be able to do that workflow. So what happens in that case? You can have multiple jobs, correct, linked to each other. So once a job is defined, you can define another job and then link them to using the post build action. So you can call another job as a downstream job, correct, and then that particular next job might further call another downstream job. So in that way, your complex problem can be or complex workflow can be broken into multiple jobs, and basically this helps in managing and maintaining your complex workflows. Okay, and there's another where like you can create your workflows where you can run multiple jobs in a sequential manner. So in a particular case, if you see, there might be a possible, like you have a 15 modules which you need to build, and all those 15 are independent of each other. So you can trigger parallel jobs, parallel 15 jobs. Okay, once all those 15 jobs are done, okay, you then you move to the post build stage where you can basically collect all the results and finds. So that basically helps in reducing the time, because otherwise, if assume like one module takes 1 minute, it would have taken 15 minutes, but if you run them in a parallel, so it might have just taken a 1 minute to build 15 builds. So those kind of things you can always add to make your build faster. So that all depends what kind of a project it is, how you can do it. So for parallel builds, you have a different plugin. So it's in Jenkins, nothing is available by default. You have a multiple plugins. So you have to choose which plugin. What is your problem statement? Then you have to search for corresponding plugin, and you have to add that plugin, and then uh, you can get your workflow done. Okay, so just give me a minute. I will just take a break of 2 minutes, and then we'll come back. So okay, so now let's see what is their depth. So okay, so now here we are integrating the GitLab, or basically in this example we are integrating a GitHub using a Git plugin. So you have a if you are using a GitLab based repository like GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket, so they have their own plugins also. But since the concept is similar for all, so basic code checkout, cloning, and that kind of a concept is same. So we can also use a Git plugin here. So we just need to provide the repository URL. If it is protected, it is a private or protected, then you can provide the credentials. Okay, and you can specify which branch to so master branch would be checked out. But if you are integrating it with like GitLab or GitHub using a trigger, like assume a case where like somebody checks into a particular branch and you want that whatever has been checked out should be compiled. So basically a check-in is the or pushing a code to a repository is a trigger. So in that case, uh, there are certain environment variables which are pushed by GitLab or GitHub, which are available to Jenkins, correct? So that would help you to identify which branch has been checked in. So there you can use those environment variables to check out the branch. But since this is a manual triggered job, so we are hard coding in a sense, like we will be checking out code from master all the time. Then this is the compiling the code. So we have just directly jumped to the build environment. So here we are specifying since this project is Maven based. So we are using Maven build tool. Basically, that this is the plugin which has been provided by developers using Maven. So there we can choose the goals, correct? So Maven has the goals. Similarly, like SPT or Gradle, they also use similar things, but nomenclature is different. Okay, so goal basically tells, like in this case, clean. So clean basically will your remove all temporary files which have been generated during your previous builds. Okay, so coming back to one thing, so in this process, like when we are defining in this way, so you can also choose like using the additional behavior, how code would be checked out. Okay, so by default, if code is not there, then it would be cloned. But next time you run this job, codes would be pulled. So like it will not do the complete clone again because code is already there. So whatever has been delta has been checked in, that would be pulled and merged into your Jenkins workspace repository. Okay. So you can override that behavior also. You can also configure like every time you need to uh, pull the fresh, not the full. Basically, you have to clone fresh code again. Obviously, that would increase your time because if you just do a pull, then a delta is just checked out. If you do the complete clone, that would basically, like if your repository has, for example, 800, 700 MB of a code. So depending upon your internet speed and connectivity thing, 7 or 800 MB of code would be checked out, correct? And things would be slow in that case because downloading single line change and downloading 800 MB of file, that makes basically increases the time also. So okay, so coming back to here, so clean is like in terms of a Maven. So if you are compiling a Maven project, some target files are generated which so clean will delete all those temporary files, okay, before it starts compiling your code. So then install is basically like it will set the new dependencies. If needed, it will download the dependencies from your Maven repository, or if you have your own internal private Maven repository, okay, and then it will compile your code. It will generate the artifacts. If you have defined some tests, unit tests, that would also be run and results would also be stored. Okay. So once the build status build is started, so build has a its own life cycle. So it will start, it will go into in progress. If build is successful, then obviously the status would be build successful. If build is failed, then it is marked as failed. And if it was passed earlier, no, sorry, it was failed earlier and now it is passed, then it has a separate build status. Okay, so depending upon different scenarios, build status is updated. Okay, and if build is successful, then it will basically show you status in build numbers. So build is a concept where like if you run multiple times a particular job, so it creates new builds. So you can see the previous build or build status as a builds. Okay, so we will see it a little later. Okay, then you can trigger JUnit. So we just let me mute Shubham. I think. So now we can publish the tests, unit tests which we executed earlier. Okay. We can also configure Jacopo for code coverage. Jacopo is the Java code coverage plugin. So once you run the unit test, in the background it checks what code coverage your unit test cases are doing. So once you publish that test report, so you can also get the code coverage of your project. Okay. So this is how your unit test report would look like. So like in this case, like we had 9 test cases and there is 0 failure. So you can just check like we had 2 modules with 5 test cases in one and 4 in another, and so this is the first time, so that's why it's showing +5 +4. But once you run the next time, so it will if there is some failure case, then it will show you minus or plus depending upon. Basically, this is the delta with your previous run. Okay. So this is what we covered in earlier session. So this is just a brief. Now let's do the same thing. Okay. So I'm just using PowerShell for SSH. Okay. Now, so for doing the SSH, I will be using this PowerShell. Okay. And we will be using it as for a Git client also. So doing any operations on Git client side, we will be using PowerShell. You can also use like if you're working on other machines, you can use command prompt if you have a Git locally installed. Okay. And if you're on Linux, then these things are by default available. So now let's create a EC2 instance. Okay. So last time, what we were choosing, we were using the Ubuntu free tier. Okay, so with Ubuntu free tier, I think there is some problem. Probably Ubuntu itself needs some more space and more CPU. So CPU utilization was too high, and Maven was not able to fork a new process for building the project. So that's why our job was getting failed. So we had to switch to our local Jenkins and we could do the operations. But using Amazon Linux, which is basically a kind of a Red Hat based um, operating system or virtual machine, we can do the same thing. So I tested it yesterday. So let's use it. Okay. So since we are only eligible for free tier, so it's only 1 GB of RAM, 1 core. We don't need to change anything. Storage, I think 10 GB is okay for us. Tags, we don't need. We can just keep it for now. SSH, since we need to access our Jenkins and Jenkins runs on 8080 port, so we need to add rule for 8080 ports so that we can access uh, Jenkins portal from our machine. And SSH, for SSH, obviously 22 port is needed. Okay. So you can just review it and then launch it. So here we can choose you want to use your existing key pair or you want to um, basically generate a new key pair. So let's create a new key pair. Okay. Bob Guru 2020 key. Okay. Then download it. So let's download it here. Okay. Then launch it. Okay. Now let's wait for it to come up. So I hope till now things are clear. We are not doing anything new. So we have already done it earlier. So in case of any issues, just keep putting them into a chat. So we can take up those. Good. So because AWS is also pushing for new GUI. So in your case, it might look like this. Okay, but since I've been using the old one, so I feel more comfortable with old one. So you can switch on between any of these two interfaces. Okay, but both are same. So it doesn't add a new information. It's same information to two different GUIs. Okay. So now this is a public IP address. Okay. And other things you already know it. Okay. So now let's connect to this. Okay. For connecting, you can do SSH. Okay. So let's do the SSH. Coming back to here. Git paste. It's not copied yet. Copy paste. Okay. This okay. So what is the problem? DevOps tool key.
You need to change the permission of PIM file.
On Windows, okay. How to do it in Windows? Eh? Mm, Normally in Windows you don't do it.
So you can do it from GUI, right? Click on the file, go to properties. Maybe you will find an option. I'm also not sure about Windows, and just a suggestion.
Normally I use Linux or similar tools, but somehow control. Let me check. Okay, Windows. So we normally use Windows just to make the thing easier. So here also, if we have to do this kind of a things, let me just let me go to my user. Okay. So what happened earlier was like I created this key in C colon in my C directory itself, uh, and since it was accessible from all different users on this particular machine, so it was not allowing us. But I moved it to my own user account. Okay, so inside the download. So now it is working because now only my this particular user can access it. So now it has narrowed down the permission to a single user. So this is a good learning. You cannot just keep your key anywhere. It has to be inside uh, some user, which is basically logged in user. Okay. Okay. Now we will just upgrade the fine. So now first is ready. Now we have let's move to the first step. So what we will do, we will download the. Let me share this browser also. Now we need to get the. Okay, we already have it. Okay, we need to get the Jenkins image. Okay, what we will do, let's go to the Jenkins download page. Okay, this is the official Jenkins site. Okay, so there are multiple ways you can download the Jenkins as we discussed earlier. So there's a Docker image, there is a generic war which we will be using. Then you have a you can say RPM based images for Jenkins. For Windows, you can install it, then it will ask you whether you want to run it as a service or not. Correct. So different platforms they are also supported. But since this is a Java, the WAR file is generic, so it can run on any platform. So as everybody knows, like Java code is a platform independent code. So it's basically a bytecode which runs on a JVM, and since JVM is for different machines, but from application perspective, the this particular application would be can same application can run on Linux. You link address, okay, because if you download it, then in the bottom, if you see, it shows you the path like of this WAR file. So we just need this WAR file. Using wget command, we can get this WAR file. It would be downloaded on our EC2 instance. Then so in coming sessions, like when we cover this Docker, we will see how we can run this Jenkins in a Docker environment, okay, and how we can do the manage the persistence of this Jenkins Docker basically, because Docker containers, once you terminate them, everything goes away with them, because this is the ample storage. But you can also configure the persistent storage so that even if container is not there, uh, basic configurations or data files, they remain there. If you restart the or recreate your Docker container, it picks up the old configuration, so you don't have to do the configurations again. Okay, so here we have a Jenkins path, Java minus star Jenkins war. Okay, so what we can do, we can run it here, okay, or we can run it in a background process. So if we do address operator, it would run as a background process. What happened? Java minus star Jenkins what? Okay, in this case we don't have a Java. Okay, so what we can do, yum install JDK. JDK should be there somehow. Uh, Java. Okay, let's install the Java also. Java on Amazon. Hmm. So let me just search a command for it. Uh, let's install JDK 1.8. I think that should be fine. Open JDK we can also install. Java minus sudo yum install open JDK. Ah,
Anil, try running yum update once.
I guess earlier I did not run it using sudo, so it did not execute. But sudo yum update. But I have already downloaded this JDK 1.8. Okay, so it is there. Now let's say Java. Okay, now we have a Java. So I don't know. This image was supposed to have the JDK also, but somehow. Um, So not an issue. We can check what best JDK we can use, image we can use, but we can always install like uh, this Java minus 1.8.0. There are multiple versions of Java. So JDK basically you can download. So Open JDK is also there, but it's okay. So now Java minus jar we can just run the JDK again in a background process. Now it has started executing it. Okay. Now, as we saw, like a default admin user password is generated temporary. So you can find that in logs, or you can also find those at this particular path. So we will just copy it from here. So make sure like you just copy correct one. Otherwise, by default, space is also copied. Okay, so now it says Jenkins is fully up and running. We can just go and access our Jenkins. Okay. Okay, now the question is how to access it. Okay, so we need to go to the Jenkins. Okay, get the public IP address, okay, and then use the 8080 port because Jenkins uses default 8080 port. Okay, you have to copy the password again, enter the password. Okay, now we have this option to choose whether you want to go with the default suggested plugins or we just want to choose your own plugin. So we will choose our own plugins because there are many plugins which we don't want. So let's uncheck all. Okay. So what we want in this particular case, let's use timestamper. This would add timestamp to your logs which are generated like by building it. So this helps when a build was generated. Once when was the build created. So you have a multiple build tools and Gradle and Nest build Node.js, but it does not have a Maven. Okay, so Maven we will add it as a build tool. Okay, for reporting we will use HTML Publisher. For running JUnits we will use JUnit. Okay, because we already know project has JUnit types of pipelines available. Okay, so this is a multi-job plugin. This also has a what we can say parallel job execution functionality. So okay, so there are multiple types of pipelines available. So based upon what is your use case and requirement, you can choose. Okay. Source code management, there's already multiple plugins available, so you can choose which one to use it. So we will use Git. This is generic, or you can also use GitLab because we will be integrating with the GitLab. So this plugin allows GitLab to trigger Jenkins build. Okay, so I will be trying to showcase you how you can trigger a Jenkins build from a GitLab. So we will use this GitLab also. But if you are using a GitHub and from there you want to trigger a build, so you can choose GitHub or Bitbucket, whatever your SCM tool is. Okay. Then there are multiple distributed builds if you want to run on a different machines. So we will see if we get a time, then I will also show you how we can run a build on another machine. So let's assume a case where you have a Linux machine which is basically running your Jenkins environment. Okay, and you want to build a Windows exe. Okay, so that cannot be done on your Jenkins machine. So in that case, you need to have a Windows machine. Then you need to integrate that Windows machine with your Jenkins as a Jenkins slave. Then you can basically run your jobs, basically build job on that particular run some Mac executable, or basically you want to generate or run a Mac executable. You can create Jenkins slave with Mac OS, and from your master Jenkins machine you can trigger those workflow items on these slave machines. So we will cover this topic also in coming sessions, because now onwards our focus more would be on how to use Jenkins with different other tools, so that we can foresee how a complete DevOps pipeline works. Okay, so here if you want to integrate your third party or like your organization's entity server, you can integrate here. So you have Active Directory, you have a LDAP, so, those kind of things you can also choose. Like if you want to let people use their organization's credentials to log into your Jenkins machine. So, normally, what happens like access to Jenkins is not given to all. Some of the jobs can be made public, so they can execute those jobs, but to modify the job or to create a job, that permission is not given, so that remains with Jenkins administrator. Okay. Otherwise, everyone will start playing with your jobs, and your jobs might not work at the end of the day. Then you have an email plugin, so you can send notifications. So you can send an email notification, or there are certain other third-party notification which so so that is there, but not there in this default set of plugins. So you have to search it. Okay, so I think this is all. Let's install all. So here we are just installing 4, 5, and 6 plugins. Otherwise, if you had gone with the default list of plugins, then it would have installed 8 or 9 plugins. So now the things are very clean. So whatever you need, it is there. Right. So you are not adding extra plugins which might somebody might misuse. So let it install it. Seems there was some network issue connectivity, but it will resume from where it left. Okay, now basic plugin installation is done. So let's define a name here. So just for simplicity, use admin. Okay, admin@admin.com. Okay, so this will create a admin user. Okay. You can create your own other users also. Now it will give you Jenkins URL to access it. Since we are already using it, so we don't need to do anything. So here your Jenkins installation is done. Okay. So now we have all the plugins available, but still, if you want to do, if you want to manage your plugins, you can just go to the manage plugins. Okay. Here you have available plugins. So since this is the list is big, you can also do filtering. So it will give you what kind of plugins are available. It's just like around Git. So you have different taggings available also. Okay. If you have some plugin which you want to upgrade, if it has a new version available, that would also come here. Okay. You can get a list of plugins which are installed. So you can also uninstall a particular version which you see. A lot of plugins here which we did not install, but they came along. So if you are behind a proxy, you can configure your proxy. Okay. Then there is also functionality where some of the times it might happen like you don't have an internet on your machine, so but still you want to upload a plugin. So how would you do it? You can just go to Jenkins site, search for a particular plugin. You can download that plugin in a HPI format. Basically, plugins are in HPI format. Then to basically upload this into your Jenkins machine, or if it is on your local machine, you can then choose that file and upload it. So, but make sure that whatever plugins you are installing, that should be compatible with your current version of Jenkins. Otherwise, it might not work and it might stop other plugins to work. the other plugins might not work because of this incompatibility. Okay, so that is the thing. Then in our case, like we need to install Maven. So these are different options which we have already covered in earlier session. So I will not go into it. That will just take up the time. So here JDK is already there. Let's see when we compile what do we get any error. So Git we can install Git. Okay. But I think Git should be there. Let's see. If it is not there, we can install it later. Tool also. So Jenkins also provides you functionality for known tools. It already knows where to download, and it will show you different whatever the available versions are there. Okay, so like in this case, if you want to install the old version of Maven, you can install it. You can choose the old version, but okay, but we will go with the Maven v.6.3. Okay, and apply it, save it. Now we have configured it. Now let's create your first project. We have ops CI pipeline. We will use the freestyle project, okay, uh, because that is easy to visualize and understand. Okay. So this is the how a job or project looks like. So you have a different sections. You have a source code management. You can define your SCM connections. You can also define your build triggers, environment variables. If you want to set before your build, then you can build it, and then you can do a post build. So let's test for like the dev of Guru test project. Okay. So there are multiple options available in each and every section. We have already covered these. You can just go back to the earlier integration with your GitLab. So since all these are the Git-based tools, Git-based SCM, so we just need to provide the URL, and if you have any credentials, you can also provide credentials. Credentials can be in different formats. So these, as we discussed earlier, these can be username, password, okay, or these can be tokens, or these can be the your SSH keys, or these can also be a certificates. But the example which we are taking now basically does not uh, have a credentials. So we will be using this one uh, in this project. So this is a basic hello world project using the Maven project. So now this is the URL, okay, which we can use for cloning. So here we will provide the repository URL. So repository URL can be Git, or it can be HTTPS. Okay. So it will show you this error for the time being, but once we run, we will see it will resolve this. Okay, here we can choose which branch to build. Okay, since we are using a manual triggered job, so we can hard code it. Otherwise, there are multiple environment variables which are pushed by GitLab or GitHub, so we can use those. Okay. Here you can define what should be the behavior once SCM pulls the code. So basic one, which will basically, if not code is not there, it will clone it, and next time it will just pull the code to make the things faster. Okay. This part we will come little later. Okay. So just for time being, we will add a timestamp to console output. Okay. Now here we will invoke the Maven targets. Okay. So here you can choose the Maven version. So if you had a multiple, you can choose multiple. Okay. So we will here enter clean install goals. Okay. If you just go to the advanced, you can also provide the path of form file if it is not there in the standard path. You can also provide properties if you have want to provide like minus skip test or any other things. Um, so there are many other options from DevOps perspective, these options would be provided by developers. Otherwise, generally it's just a form file which we need to provide. So form file is in the same folder like here you can also provide this. But generally in current folder Maven search for the form file. If it is not there in the current folder, you have to explicitly give the path. So this is what we need to do. So let's do this one and then let's add other steps later. Okay, now let's see. So once you start doing it, here you can see the builds, basically the runs which are done. So this is the build number one executed at this time. This time is basically taken from the AWS. So probably our AWS instance is in some other time um, time. No issues there. So let's see why did it fail. Could not initialize this performing this, cannot run Git program. Okay, so Git is not there. Uh, Somehow this Jenkins installation did not happen completely, or let's see, install automatically at okay. So here there are two ways to install the Git basically. Okay. One is using this interface. Here you can provide from where to download this URL. Okay, so you can search internet and get the URL. Or other way is like but this is more recommended way. Here you can manage your different versions of Git also, like Git XYZ. Okay, so you can also do it. Or other way is just to install the Git on your Jenkins machine. So this this global tool will search for Git installation in your local Jenkins machine folder. So if it is there, it will take it from there, or otherwise it will you can install it from external sources. So let's download Git download for we need the let's search it from here. Or otherwise let's you can explore it yourself. Okay, so we will just go with a simpler way. So here what we do, sudo yum install git. Okay, so we will install it on a Jenkins machine. Now Jenkins machine, this job should now be able to pick this build, okay, this Git. So you can execute your job from here also, or you can just go inside and build it from here. Okay. So for seeing the logs, you can just directly jump to here, this red bar, and here you can see what is being happened. So here you see logs have been added. Okay. So now earlier it downloaded the Git. Sorry, it is now downloading the Maven. Okay, and now I think it is downloading the other dependencies. Okay, because if you remember from previous sessions, Maven is nothing but a build tool where you don't have to package your libraries, dependent libraries in your artifacts. So just give a reference which find which library you want and which version of library you want, and Maven will download it from your from its Maven repository. So this is what it is now, downloading all the mentioned libraries defined in form file and downloading it. And once it is downloaded, so this helps in reducing the size of your overall uh, package binary. But basically, not the package binary. So whatever you don't have to basically check in the library things libraries into your source code. Okay, now let's see what happened. No compiler is provided in this environment. Perhaps you are running on a GRE rather than a JDK. Okay, so we did not install JDK, or it's not able to find JDK. Okay, so let's solve this problem using a proper way. Okay, so let's come back to this configure tool. Okay, so here also you can basically install your JDK, for example 9.0.4. Okay, but as you might be knowing, like you cannot you need to provide your username and password, only then you can download it. So let me just let me enter my credentials. So if you have a account created in Oracle, so you can add it, but let me add it my official credentials. Hmm, okay. So now I have entered my credentials. Okay, now let's see if it downloads the JDK also. So best practice is to install any tool using Jenkins itself. Okay, because it manages the different versions also. Now see, it has started downloading the JDK. Because with Jenkins, you can manage multiple versions of JDK. Otherwise, if you just install a JDK in your Jenkins machine, then it might not pick multiple versions. And choosing JDK from this particular mechanism is also helps when you start working with your Jenkins work nodes or slave nodes. So there, same configuration, if you run this job on a particular slave, the slave will download the whatever mentioned JDK is there. So you don't have to install JDK on your slave machines for building a particular project. So you should always try to install these tools from Jenkins uh, global tool if internet is available. If internet is not available, obviously in that case you can choose other mechanisms. Let me just meanwhile it is doing this configuration. I will also just opening. So here it will try to download it from the tools, but I think there is one more plugin. It is not there by default. I think there is one more plugin which we can use. Let me just search if it is by default there. But custom tools is there where you can. I think it is here. Is it plugin? Fingerprint. Uh-huh. So there is a separate tool. So there you can basically configure that tool to point that installation to your local directory. Like if you have a 2 or 3 JDKs, you can configure that tool like which version of JDK. Basically, it will do a mapping with the label and the JDK version, and inside the job you can configure those things. So that would help. That would help in So that would help in basically using multiple tools simultaneously. Okay, so this is what. Okay. So if we see the console output, JDK has been installed. Okay, and Maven was run, and at the end, if we see, okay, so here we can see that it is a workspace for a particular build. Okay, so this SRC folder license form and readme these were downloaded. Okay, and the target file has been generated, so it contains all the uh, output files which have been generated as a part of build part. Okay, so we will see how it works. And another tool which I just wanted to show was okay, so we will come to that a little later. So now we have been able to compile it. Okay, so tests they also no, test also then now we want to do the core section. Now we want to publish the report. Okay, test report. So publish the test report is basically we can inside your target you have a test reports and then this particular folder is there. Okay, so you best way is to copy this. Okay, change the project name or otherwise you can just add like this. Okay. Uh, test reports target. Correct. So, you can also, since in workspace we have a direct target folder, so you can also add it in this way. Now, if we run it, then you will be able to see the test results. Now see, it is running the test. Okay, test 5 passed, total 9 passed. Okay, so JUnit test plugin, it is showing error, no test reports were found. Now let's try to debug why it did not work. So if you see in targets, you have a ShareFile reports, and here you have a, then you have a these XML files. Now let's see what was the mistake from our side, why it was not able to pull star.xml. Okay, now it is correct. Probably some spelling mistake was there. Now see. So regarding this timestamp, you can also say like choose multiple options. So we will just use a system clock time. Okay, now it is successful. Now we just go to the project. Now here you see the chart has been prepared. Okay, so now for build number 6, you had 9 test cases passed, 0 failed, 0 skipped. Okay, so whenever a new build is run, you will have this chart. Okay, so here you can see 0 failure and 9 passed. So if you have a multiple modules, you can just go to each and every module and see these kind of a test reports. You see, so this is the one test case which passed. So this is the test case name. Okay, so this is how you can check the JUnit test. So now the next part corresponding to CI is the code coverage. So now we will see the code coverage. For code coverage, we need to have a Jacoco code plugin. So since we did not choose the Jacoco plugin, so we will try to install the this plugin. So go to the availables, type Jacoco. Sorry, installed without restart. It will download it. Most of the plugins don't need a restart of Jenkins. Okay, so now configure it. Okay, so this code coverage recording comes as a part of post build action. So here you can record the code coverage. So these are the paths. So by default, if you have a project which follows a Maven project convention, so you don't need to change anything. Okay, you can also set a if you have some of the projects or organization, they have certain rules, like if your code coverage is less than this, so you can define those thresholds like fail or aborted. So you can tell if your branch code coverage is less than 80%, or those kind of things you can also define, but we will not define it for now. So let's keep it simple. So now run it. So now when you run it, what will happen, like JUnit test cases, they are executed, code coverage files, they are also generated, and at the end uh, as a post build action, code coverage would be generated. So now here you can also see the in logs what is the code coverage parameters. Okay, you can also see it in GUI interface. So here you can see now uh, here code coverage. So these are the lines covered. 25, little more than 25 lines have been covered, and less than 5 lines they are still not uh, covered. Okay, so you can see the other code coverage view like this. So it will just click it. So here it will show file by file code coverage. So here green represents that no, this code has been covered. Red means this is not yet covered. So in this particular case, if you see the line wise code coverage, 93% code has been covered and 7% is not yet covered. So we can just go to the file wise details and see. So here everything is covered. So that's why uh, in code coverage. But if we just go to here, so you will see this particular statement has not been executed. This is not yet executed. So this view helps the developers to identify what part of code is not yet covered. Okay, so now here you see the code trend. So since now all the test cases are passed, so you can see between 6 and 7. So line is same, red is 0. So if there is a change, you will see this graph getting changed accordingly. Okay. So this is the complete CI part of your using the Jenkins. Okay. So any questions till now? Like we can take questions, and if you don't have any questions, then we can just go to the last part, integration with GitLab. So any questions? Any doubts? So it's more kind of a repetition of what we did till now around the Jenkins activity. Okay, so in case there is no questions, we can move to the next part. Okay, so as we have already discussed, like how to create your GitLab account and do those kind of things. So I have already created one GitLab account. Okay, so if you see, I have okay, fully. I created one project, but somehow okay. So now here what we will see how to create a uh, GitLab project and how to configure a trigger. So for simplicity, what we will do, we don't have any code on this particular repository. Okay, so what we will do, we will configure a trigger. We will configure a webhook on GitLab which would trigger our existing branch. Okay, so we will try to showcase it here from here how it happens. So let's create a new project, eDevOps Guru. Okay, demo demo project. Let's keep it private. Initialize this with README file. So we have been able to create this project. Okay, so we will add files to this project also, but before that we will see how things work, like how we can configure the triggers. Okay, so here you have a multiple options. Some of the options already we have explained. Okay, some of the things which were still left is one is the webhooks. So what is a webhook? Webhook basically, like you can message to a particular URL. Okay. So in this case, this URL would be a URL exposed by your Jenkins. Okay, so we will configure that URL here, and Jenkins will call that URL and pass whatever the parameters are required. Okay, so basically this whole concept is called a webhook. So Jenkins exposes some webhooks, and GitLab uses those webhooks to send the notifications. So how to get that particular URL from Jenkins? So now go to the job which you want to integrate with that particular GitLab. So here, since we have already added that GitLab plugin, so we will see some of the parameters here. So you can choose poll SCM. Okay, so you can define SCM. So we have not yet defined SCM, but let's see if we had defined uh, here. You go to system. Here you can also show your GitLab connection. Okay, so you can add connection here, your host URL and your credentials. So we will cover this some other time, but for the time being, we are more interested in webhook based triggers. Okay, so just for understanding what are the different types of triggers can be. So one can be the poll SCM. If we define this URL in the global section, then it will start polling your that GitLab or GitHub or uh, push to that particular repository. So it will identify and trigger the build. Then there is a periodic build. So it is more kind of a cron job. So you define when to run this job. Okay, so based upon these are the different parameters which you can define. So based upon this, a build uh, periodically pulls the code or checks the repository. Okay, so if you have some scripts, you can also trigger build remotely. Okay, for that you need an authentication token, but this is generally not recommended or not generally used. Uh, this is the one if you want to trigger multiple, like if you have a multiple jobs and if you just want to align them in a sequential method, so you can find it here. But what we are interested in this one. So this is the URL which you need to configure. So basically, this is the GitLab webhook. Okay, so this is a GitLab webhook which we need to configure in here. Okay, then you need to enter the secret token. The secret token will come from here. So this is a secret token. You need to generate it, copy this, paste it here. Okay, so there are multiple ways where you can trigger this pipeline. So this pipeline can be triggered like if you have somebody pushes change to a particular branch or any branch itself. Okay, so that is the merge request is basically like code review process which we discussed earlier. So this will we will cover in coming um, sections or coming training sessions. So there are multiple ways of like triggering it. So we will just use this push event. Okay. Since we don't have a SSL connection with GitLab, so we will disable it. we will add this webhook. Okay, so now our webhook has been added. So here it is. So just for testing the webhook, what we will uh, do now, we can test it. Okay, so test what we want to test, push events. So now when as soon as somebody pushes code to our GitLab repository, this particular repository, a push event would be generated, okay, and that would trigger the webhook and would send payload as a push event. So we can simulate that directly here. So basically do a push event, okay. So if we see here, oh, we did not save it, so it might not work. So uh, let's cover it completely and then we will come back. So from GitLab, you might be getting multiple webhook requests. So you can also filter those here. So here we default have a push events. Merge request for now. So you can also put filters there. So there are multiple things which you can configure, and you can also configure like look which branches you want to allow. So you can put a regular expression on a branch name, like you can regular expression on a branch. You can specify a particular branch itself, okay, or those kind of things are also available. But let all branches to trigger this job, okay. So let's save it. Okay, now let's run it again. So if we see here, webhook executed successfully, but it did not return anything because our job was not ready there. So now let's test it again. Now here, if you see, job has been triggered. Okay, so if we wait for a couple of minutes, now here you see the job has been start by GitLab push by eDevOps Guru 2020. So this is our repository. So now here job has been triggered. Okay. So since we did not choose any branch or anything, so it's the same um, job which we just tested the trigger part. We did not take any input from that particular webhook. So we will see how we can take that plus things also. But if you see here, so now we have a multiple options enabled. Now you can see the git build data. Okay, so this is the remote branch which was executed. This is a version. Come back to the project. Okay, so let's okay, so Jacob code summary is here. Now you have this git version also. So if you push a particular change to git flag, so that commit ID you will see it here. Okay, since this is just the last push which we did. So, but if you do a real check-in, so it will get updated. So it is showing you which user did the check-in. Okay, so that would also be available here. Okay. Then you can also check the here. Okay, so hmm, so for so this is like how build can be triggered from GitLab, but we are not able to see the um, GitLab pushed variables. So whenever GitLab pushes some calls on webhook, it calls basically it sends some of the parameters like which branch and those kind of things. So that is not we are able to see because that is a part of a plugin. So let's try to add that plugin and see if we can see those environment variables, and then we can use those environment variables in our job to pull the code from this particular branch which you know developer pulls in. So let's see what is the plugin. Manage plugins available. GitLab, GitLab, webhook picker, GitLab hook. We see here, we can just go and see the description of these things also, what it provides. Okay. Environment variable, I think it is something named GitHub. Environment variables. I think this should be okay. So let's install it. So there are multiple webhooks, but some of the configurations they are generic. So now here it should be able to show us the variables also. Now pipeline configure here, then you will see some other this not is not needed. Okay, so let's leave it. So we will cover in coming sessions, like how we can pass different variables. But let me search. I think it is not there, but still we can GitLab variable for branch name in Jenkins. Okay. So basically, you get a complete list of variables with their values you want to use. So branch, this is the branch name. Yeah, so many variables. So let's not waste today's time. So we will cover it in next session. Okay. So I hope till now things are clear. So what you can do now. Okay. So we have this Jenkins here. Okay. So what you do as a part of today's session, or like lab hands-on, you clone this code onto your EC2 instance, like here. Okay, that means we can do it right straight away. I will just show you, help you a little bit. So do get clone. Okay, so this code would be cloned to your local repository, the local EC2 instance. Okay, from here, what you do, you push this code to your GitLab. Okay, so this is your GitLab. Okay, you go to here and go to the this particular repository which we just created. Okay, how you find the URL? You can find like URL on this there. So okay, so here what you do, you create a GitLab folder. go to GitLab, get clone, overview, copy the path, okay, DevOps guru, okay. So probably there's some issue with the credentials. Let's check what is the username DevOps guru. Let me try it once, and if it does not work, then probably you can do it yourself. DevOps guru 20. Okay, so now you have cloned this one. So now copy the content what you got it from the GitHub. Okay, so this was the project which we got. Okay, cp -r to here. So what we are doing here, so no, this is not good. Basically we just need the content of that particular folder, not star star to here. Okay, so this is what we have copied from here. So basically now we have added the code. Okay, now we need to do the git add and then push this code to your remote repository. Okay, so basically you are taking code from one repository and pushing that code into your another remote repository. So you can add git add, okay, and then it commit -a. Okay, -a it's not there, so we can just add the comment. So whatever it is, okay. So then basically your code would be pushed to this particular repository. Then you can fine tune this this pipeline so that your job basically picks the code from GitLab instead of a GitHub. You configure your credentials here, and then this pipeline pulls the code from your GitLab. So I think that if you are able to do, then you will be able to understand the whole concept. Okay, and then try to push some changes to your GitLab repository, maybe to add something to the README and see how that changes are triggered, and how that pipeline basically triggers based upon your push. So I think that that should be the aim of this activity. Okay. So any queries or any doubt till now? I will share the lab hands-on notes after this session.